We have with monotheism this conceptual revolution, a revolution that happens sort of all at once in Islam, somewhat less than all at once, I think, in Judaism and Christianity. For example, in Judaism, at least what you might call classical Judaism, God is the God of the people of Israel, in a sense the God of the tribe, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of your fathers. God himself is called Father, both in Christianity and Judaism. Islam does not take this perspective, because even the earliest Islamic perspective was not what you might call an Arabist perspective. And indeed, this is one of the problems, I think, when Christian and Jewish scholars try to make comparative studies of Islam. They tend to misinterpret the importance of Allah. Or, for that matter, they misinterpret the importance of Abraham. In calling Islam an Abrahamic religion, it's not really accurate to say that, even though a lot of people do, because Abraham is not the father of Muslims in the way he's the father of the Jews and the Arabs. It was understood from the very beginning in Islam that Islam was a religion that was accessible to more than just the Arabs alone. Some of the Prophet's earliest companions were Persians or Abyssinians, people from other regions. So this idea of sort of the God of the tribe or the God of the people is something that Islam very quickly transcends. And the idea of God as Father is also transcended, obviously, because of Trinitarian problems, which I'll talk about later. So Abraham, in the Quran, is not the father of the Muslim people, as he's the father of the Jewish people. He's the father of Ismail, obviously, and the father of the Arabs. But from the Quranic point of view, he is symbolically the person who separates, in a functional sense, everything that is absolute from everything that is contingent. In other words, everything that is ever present from that which passes. He separates the ever-living from that which dies. He separates the all-embracing and primary from that which is secondary. And indeed, this concept of knowledge, awareness of the reality of things, is, to my mind at least, one of the most important openings in Islam toward what you might call the esoteric or the mystical perspective. It was long thought by Islamic scholars that if one merely believed what one was taught, uncritically, one was a believer but not yet a Muslim. To be a Muslim, a true submitter to the will of God, one had to be endowed with the certainty that what one believed was true. And so for most of the pre-modern period in Islamic theology, specifically the theology associated with it's a theological school called Asharism, the Asharites, knowledge precedes faith. Knowledge is more fundamental than faith. So if one is sort of born into a Muslim family and one is taught by one's parents to be a Muslim, and one's a dutiful kid and grows up a dutiful kid, but never thinks much about it, one is a believer, but not a Muslim. Now that person wouldn't be condemned or persecuted, but they showed it was very important to show these different degrees of faith. And so the idea of faith being linked to knowledge or the certainty of the reality of things is a very, very important role for Abraham. This is why Abraham stands at the beginning of the revelational cycle in Islam. So if you want to make a comparison here from sort of the beginnings, one can say that consciousness of the truth defines the saving function or salvation in Islam, as opposed to maybe adherence to the law in Judaism. One is saved by adhering to the law, and the presence of Christ is a saving thing in Christianity. So what saves you in each religion? The presence of Christ in Christianity, the acceptance of Christ as the personal Savior, adherence to the law in Judaism, consciousness of the real in Islam. To me, this is a very wide open door to a perspective that goes beyond what you might call formal exoteric religion. And I think this is one very important reason why the Sufi perspective has been such an important living perspective in Islam for so long. So we have in the knowledge of Abraham a knowledge that allows him to transcend the world entirely, to break the bonds of subservience to natural phenomena through awareness of transcendent existence itself, or transcendent being. And this is illustrated in the Quran by the fact that when Abraham is captured and put to the torture by his people and thrown into the fire didn't burn him. Why did the fire not burn him? Because he had transcended through his knowledge physical existence itself. Now, another important concept, of course, theologically speaking, is the concept of unity. Touheed, the oneness of God. Now, this is a place where Judaism and Islam are perhaps the closest. Let me quote from you here a short, sort of a creed, if you will, from a recently published book on Jewish theology. This is the Jewish position. God is one, creator, omnipotent, omniscient in his relation to creation. In his relations with man, he is sustainer, lawgiver, judge, restorer of life. God is unique. He has no sons or heirs. That could easily have been written by a Muslim. As a matter of fact, if I didn't tell most Muslims that it came from a Jewish source, they would believe it was written by a Muslim. Contrast that, or compare that, with the famous surah or chapter of sincerity, Surah Al-Ikhlas. Say he is God the One, God the Inimitable. He gives not birth, nor is he born, and nothing is comparable to him. Or, from the Quran, again, he is God other than whom there is none, knower of the unseen and the seen, the merciful, the compassionate. Or he is God other than whom there is none, the sovereign, the holy, the one with peace and integrity, the keeper of faith, the protector, the mighty, the one whose will is power, the most supreme. Glory be to him beyond what they, i.e. the pagans, associate with him. He is God, the creator, the maker, the fashioner, to whom belong the most beautiful names. Whatever is in the heavens and the earth sing his glories. He is the mighty, the wise. That could be easily written by a Jewish theologian as well. Yeah.
Please just have the citation.
The citation, this one is 59:22 to 24. The last one, I believe, Ikhlas, is 102, isn't it? Didn't have it written down, but I think it's 102. Ikhlas? 112, I'm sorry, I forgot the digit there. Okay, 112, thanks. Okay, that's 112. So, here again we have a very, very close connection between Judaism and Islam in terms of theology.